Hey guys, welcome to Actions Detrimental. I'm Denny Hamlin, driver the number 11. FedEx Cares. We care. Camry this weekend. Jared's my co-host. That's the only introduction you get.
I mean, I have video of him signing many autographs this past weekend.
It's ridiculous. It's getting out of hand.
Like die-cast.
It's out of hand. What can I say? It's the good thing is, though, Jared, I'll give you props. You're not letting the fame get to you.
Nope. Nope. You got to stay grounded.
That's the opposite of what you do. You never stay grounded. You're climbing walls and taking it to new heights.
Right. Yeah, I heard, I don't know, I can't remember where it was. It might have been Stephen A. Smith or someone. They're talking about something in basketball. And so-and-so is good at being a Robin. And it's just like, not everyone's good at that. Like, that's a skill. Someone's got to.
Exactly right. Somebody's got to be Pippin. Somebody has to be Pippin.
Yep.
Right?
Yeah. So I'll be the co-host and sign a few autographs if people want.
Yeah. Well, this weekend, I don't know, that the last 5 days has been an absolute disaster on my end. When you think I can't get any unluckier, here we come. The cloud falls over. I told you I'm the black cat of death, cursed. But it'll just make it more exciting when we have to overcome all this and finally do win a championship this year, hopefully. So it certainly is not ideal, not with this 3-race season about to start. Certainly I'm in a vulnerable spot now in points. It's certainly going to be a challenge. I how it basically happened, those who are tuning in, more than likely if you're listening to this, you kind of already know. But we were issued a L2 penalty from NASCAR, and that is kind of like the upper echelon of penalties. And this one was for an engine inspection infraction. So Toyota Racing Development, they build my engines for Joe Gibbs Racing and all the other Toyotas. And so they're kind of immersed in our team. A lot of TRD employees kind of roaming around JGR 2311 Legacy and whatnot, because they need to service the engines, tune them up, things like that. But so what happens is we've gone into an era where we're running engines for 2 or 3 races. So what happens is they put seals on the engine. So they're called, they're like blue seals that go on the engine itself. Once you submit it. I'm getting a little uneducated in this, but it really doesn't matter in the story. But once you win a race, they put red seals on it. So I think they either add red seals as marking it as this is a race-winning engine. At some point, it needs to be inspected. Or they cut the blues off and add reds. One of the two. I think they maybe just add reds to so this engine's got seals all over it. And you can the only way to get them off is to cut them off. And so while it's not unreasonable for Toyota to cut seals off, because they cut blue ones off all the time. When the engine is done with its life, say after the 3rd race, it will go back to Costa Mesa where it gets rebuilt, and the workers there will cut the blue seals off and they'll rebuild the engine, and then we'll run it another cycle, right? It's ready to run into the season, for a free refresh, or be ready for the following season. But what happens is when you win a race and you get these red seals put on, NASCAR says, okay, we don't need to inspect this now. We can inspect it whenever you are done racing it after its 3rd cycle. Well, it was only on its 2nd cycle, so we had another race to run. Well, that engine needed to go back to NASCAR. And it's very typical in NASCAR's teardown process inspecting the race-winning car. They do it at the racetrack. They say all official, all good. Sometimes they take the car to R&D. Sometimes they do not. And what they do is the engine, they'll take to NASCAR R&D, do a normal protocol, make sure it's the right size, and checking things with small gauges that we don't know anything about. But we haven't seen an engine penalty in quite some time, obviously, because it is such a huge. You cannot mess with the engines, tires, things like that. They drop the big hammer on you. So no one really messes with that. Everyone runs basically the same stuff, and so we win the engine. We win with the engine at Bristol. They put red seals on it. We then go run it later on. I believe at Darlington, and then at that point, down the line, that engine gets set aside, and it's like, okay, well, this engine needs to go back to be inspected. Well, instead of it going back to NASCAR, because it's done with its engine cycle, it got sent to Costa Mesa. Well, someone there, obviously should have known you don't cut red seals off. You can cut blue ones off, but not red ones off. They cut the seals off, and I think and rebuilt the engine, and immediately Toyota was like, probably they more than likely saw these red seals sitting on the ground or on someone's desk, and they're like, wait a minute, why are these here? Who cut these off? And so that's what should have been said anyway. And so they notified NASCAR, and it in their statement they laid it all out that they notified NASCAR, hey, we made a mistake here. What the engine's sitting here. What do we do? And so obviously it's sometime after this process that NASCAR's come up with the penalty, and the penalty is that this is what we have. It's we've got something in our rule book that's pretty black and white. If the engine doesn't go back for inspection or whatever, it's an L2 penalty, and here's what it is. So they told me, and I found out on Thursday, and certainly was not a good day for me, nor has the last 3 straight days.
Right.
It's been bad.
Including Daytona, which we'll get to. But I guess it's self-reported because this is something that's not going to get by NASCAR. Like NASCAR's going to come searching for this engine at some point.
Yes,
and
exactly.
You're either
right.
going to present it or you're not.
Yeah, there'll be paperwork somewhere along the lines, and they'll have a checklist of all the engines that they've inspected, and somewhere in there, it's Darlington will still have a circle around it and saying, I need that engine. And so if you try to skirt around it and just send the engine, well, it's got no red seals on it. They're going to say, where's the red seals? So it would be the same penalty regardless. So,
and this is something that everyone at Costa Mesa is aware of. Like, it's not something where an engine got sent back to Costa Mesa and whoever handled it didn't know this red seal, blue seal process. They probably all know.
Yeah, I mean, certainly you would think so, but obviously it slipped through the cracks somehow, and so things happen, and certainly when you're, nobody wanted this to happen. Certainly within TRD, they didn't want to hurt the car that they'd had that has the most points, that was sitting in the best spot to win them a championship. Surely they didn't want this to happen, but it did, and so they wanted to make sure they played by the rules and reported it and tried to see if there's any way we could rectify it, but there just wasn't. When you got red seals sitting on the ground, it's just you've hurt the integrity process of inspection.
So how does this now affect the remainder of the season? Obviously, the regular season championship is out the window, but the final 10 races, how does this affect that?
Well, that's you can look at it and say, well, it's just a 10-point penalty, but it isn't. Look where I'm at now. I'm 9th or 8th in points. I was battling for the regular season championship, which would have paid 15 points, and now at most I'm probably going to get 3. Just a huge swing for us. It's going to be upwards of 16, maybe 17 points that per round that we're going to miss out on. That and we know that these cut lines come down to the the number. Always does. I was tied with Ross, or up 2 on Ross going into Martinsville when he rode the wall. So they're always really, really close. The year before that, I think I made it by 2 points at Martinsville. That was when Harvick kind of hooked, I think Kyle Busch at the time. It always comes down to just a few points here and there. So, we're just going to have to be exceptional and not make any mistakes at all, which is very, very hard, because as good as we've been, our results over the last 2 months have just been atrocious.
Are you more on edge now about that round of 12, which is, in my mind, likely where you'll see, the biggest detriment of these points, because it's Kansas, Talladega, and the Roval?
Yeah. I need to go win Kansas. Yeah, need to go win Kansas. That'll be my mindset for sure. But, if not, then I'm going to do the best I can every single week. But obviously it's just a huge setback with this type of format. It's a killer.
Can you appeal and try to at least get some of the points back, or?
Yeah, but you could, but what are you going to appeal? It's black and white, right? It doesn't matter whether the intent, right? I mean, when it comes to wrecking, yes, intent matters, but not, when you have a rules infraction and it basically, what happened was black and white in a rule book, there's nothing to dispute. We can all talk about how unjust or unfair it is to the race team, but we're all one. You can't separate engine manufacturers and car owners and drivers. Like, it is all wrapped into one. And,
right.
We're going to ride and die together.
And I was thinking about this after I heard the news and was like, well, if that's just a mistake by the engine manufacturer, that's unfair that this penalty, falls on the driver and the team shoulders. However, if this penalty didn't fall on the team and driver's shoulders, whoever that is, and it was like a major monetary fine or something, it could be worth it to do this.
So what would happen is the engine manufacturers would then say, man, it's worth us getting a sanction or a penalty or something to give our guy a unfair advantage on the racetrack, right? And so, that's kind of why it's written the way it is.
So you were talking about the seals. So at no point does an engine with the red seal ever go back to Costa Mesa, is what you're saying?
No. Yeah, no, it shouldn't,
because NASCAR would remove the seal themselves and send it. So the red seal should have been the red flag that hey, something's up.
Yep. Yeah. It's trust me. When I heard this, I asked questions, because I'm like, wait, what? And I step in the conference room. And, there's obviously David Wilson, Tyler Gibbs, Andy Graves, one end of the table. Me and Chris Gabehart walk in, and it's Joe and Heather and Dave Alpern. And at that point, I'm like, okay, this is an isolated 11-team thing. What the hell is going on? Why am I here? Why did this need to be in person?
Is all of the actions of the last 3 weeks running through your head? Like, what did I do wrong? What did I do?
Yes.
What did I do?
Yes, because I could see David Wilson's iPad across from me, and I saw the header, and it was NASCAR penalty, and I'm like, Chris, what'd you do? I was trying to piece it all together, beforehand, and I couldn't. Didn't make any sense.
What I said on my podcast last week.
What?
You trying to figure out, rethinking what could I have said on my podcast last week?
Yeah. But I never in a million years would imagine this, because it's never happened and probably never will happen again.
How do you go from, what's your emotions there, and then how do you come back down to try to now face it and not dwell on it?
It's hard not to, and if I'm being honest with myself, I've been down the last couple days for sure. I've just been in a pissy mood, not at anyone in particular, just of the situation, and certainly last night did nothing to fix that. So I'm just going to, again, be in a sour mood until I get to Darlington and go there and dominate.
So that was Thursday. What was about Friday? Anything?
Yeah, a few things, but nothing I'll say on air for sure.
Oh, so there was to Friday.
There was, but nothing I would air out on this podcast.
Qualified 20th.
Oh yeah, that stunk, but that's kind of where we normally are on speedways.
All right, so Saturday. What was about Saturday?
All the above. Just I just have to come to grips with this is a different type of speedway racing now, and the ability to kind of just make moves and work the draft and all that stuff is just not like it used to be, and I just need to be okay with I just need to ride in line here, and if I get caught up in a wreck, I get caught up in a wreck and not be surprised, right? And so just in the next gen era, my finish rate on super speedways has not been good at all, and nothing I've caused. It's just been somebody else making silly moves, and we obviously got caught up in it.
Isn't that how it always is? It's if you're in the wrong place at the wrong time, you get caught up in
it's been that way for a while, certainly. But back when we had the previous generation car, you always had kind of the same cast of guys up front because they manipulated the draft the best, right? They worked the air the best to get up front, and then the wrecks would happen kind of in that 7 to 9 range. So they're on back. You put yourself in the middle of that pack, surely you're going to get wrecked. And that's about where I was at the time. I probably was hanging around. I was right around 10th when we got crashed there.
Why were you in the pack the way you were? Like in previous super speedway races, you've always liked to get out when you feel the energy is not right, and without points racing being a factor any longer after this penalty, what was the reason for being in the pack?
Well, because I was about the 5th car on the high line. The reason that there was kind of energy going low there is because there were very few cars left in that bottom line, or at least towards the front. So everyone was starting to migrate to the top. And when they do that, typically then everyone will go into a fuel save mode. I was fuel saving the entire time at that point. And so while saving, I'd found my way into the top 10, and I'm like, okay, this is a decent spot to sit here and ride. And I don't think I made contact with anyone with my front bumper all day because it just wasn't time yet. Like it wasn't time to really start shoving our way through the field. And so I inadvertently, not trying to, I just found myself in the top 10 and was saving fuel while doing it. And at that time, I didn't see any danger because everyone around me was just chill.
You heard us talk a lot about FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook, but we have something a little different for you. Now through September 22nd, all FanDuel customers can bet $5 and get a 3-week free trial of NFL Sunday Ticket from YouTube and YouTube TV. Then with a YouTube TV base plan, you'll be able to watch every regular season Sunday afternoon out-of-market game. All you need is a Google account and a current form of payment, and you can cancel anytime. Just visit fanduel.com/Denny to download America's #1 sportsbook. 21 and older and present in North Carolina, full price of NFL Sunday Ticket will be automatically charged seasonally after free trial. No refunds. Terms, restrictions, and embargoes apply. Gambling problem? Call 877-718-5543 or visit morethanagame.nc.gov. So you watched the rest of this race from the bus. You stuck around, I'm guessing, because Bubba was out front and there's a lot on the line for that. What's your perspective? What are you seeing when you're watching this on TV in the moment? Are you learning things? You being like, oh, well, I should have done this, or?
No, not really learning much. But more just being kind of a fan in that moment, just kind of, I've got the couple guys I'm rooting for, and then I've got others where I'm like, I don't want to see them get towards the front. So, I was just watching it kind of as a fan's perspective, and obviously, when I saw kind of the end of the race playing out where like 8 of the top 11 had no win, I knew that it was going to be very, very difficult to get a previous race winner to win that race, which obviously would have helped 23-11 in Bubba Wallace's situation. But it looked like it was inevitable when you had 2 non-win cars starting on the front row. Usually one of them is going to win in a green-white checkered situation, and that's what happened.
Yeah, big Christopher Bell fans.
Yeah, I think I heard that on Bubba's radio. Tell Steve Bell he knows what to do. And so I was very actually surprised from C-Bell that he didn't move up in front of the top line. I thought there was a moment there when I was watching where he had stuck behind Kyle, but the two of them actually cleared the high line. And my perspective is anytime you can be the lead car of a line, it doesn't matter inside or low, you take it. And so I thought that when he chose to stay behind the 8 and not move up in front of Harrison, that was a big, big moment, because at that point, now it's going to be decided between whoever the leader is at the top versus whoever the leader is at the bottom. And so I think that, that was certainly a defining moment for sure. But yeah, I thought it was over. Kyle Busch was going to cruise to this victory until the last lap where, Harrison gets this huge run from Parker.
Yeah, that was surprising because there was no Toyotas there. He wasn't pushing a Toyota. Like, he was on his own.
Yeah.
And maybe just wasn't cleared by a spotter to get up, or
it's possible. I mean, it was from what I saw. Again, I'm watching on TV. I'm not there live. What I saw was like, he's clear. Move up. It's too late. Like, there was a moment, but it was a small moment in time.
How small is that moment? Like,
I mean, if I'm in that position, the first thing I'm thinking of, if I'm the second car in line on the bottom or the second car in line on the top, and I clear one of the 2 lanes to now puts me ahead of one, the moment he says clear, I'm just turning whatever direction. Like, as soon as he says it, I'm not even thinking twice, and I'm just going, because that is the move that puts you in contention to win. Because not only that, what happens is that when if he would have pulled out from Kyle, he then would have left Kyle on an island by himself, where Kyle would not have had anyone behind him taking the drafting with him. So it would have parachuted Kyle's car backwards as soon as he pulled out to go beside him. So it would have been a double positive. You most likely would have got a push from behind from the 21, and the 8 would have been on this island where he's got to wait probably 5-6 seconds for the next car in line to get up to him. And so during that time, you likely would have had position on him.
Are you looking to clear yourself in that moment? I want to compare it to, like, if you're driving down the highway and you see a car in a lane and you want to be in front of that car. So you pass the car and then you immediately look in your mirror. Okay, am I clear? Am I clear? Am I clear? And then you merge over. Is it similar in that situation where you're on the bottom line, the bottom line's rolling, you see you're probably going to get ahead of the top car, and then once you do,
yes,
you can slide up. Like, you don't even need the spotter to tell you clear. Can you clear yourself in that situation?
Yeah, with the mirrors, the electronic mirrors that we have nowadays, you certainly could. It wouldn't be unprecedented to just go ahead and make the move yourself. But again, I can't emphasize, like, we're Sunday afternoon quarterbacking here, right? I think in the moment things happen quickly. It's just a matter of how fast is the game going for you, and I think that sometimes that's where experience really plays into a factor where you know that immediately, if there's an opportunity to jump lines and be the front of it, we have to take it to win this race.
Before we get into Harrison Burton's win and all the implications that come from that, before this race, NASCAR added a shark fin, or whatever they want to call it, to the rear window to prevent cars from flipping, and we saw more or less 1.5 flips. Michael McDowell got sideways through that big wreck through turn 4, and then Josh Berry flipped over completely and then crushed the inside wall while on his roof.
Yeah, I think we I kind of gave my piece on this last week where while no one likes flips, right? I don't have a giant issue with it because there hasn't been many major injuries come from flipping. It's, you're dispersing energy when you're flipping. If Josh Berry's car does not flip over, he hits the inside wall harder.
Why? Because
when he flips over, that is essentially slowing his car down. As it's turned to the side, starts to flip over, his car is slowing in speed. If that car doesn't, and it just streamlines into the inside wall without a flip, it's going faster. It hits the wall because you've taken from point A to point B at a faster rate.
So aren't you also trying to hit the brakes? Aren't you also trying to slow the momentum of the
that's
wheels
the
down?
argument you can make for sure, and it's a legitimate one. We saw it when John Hunter Nemechek, I believe, slid through the infield there in the backstretch. His car, it looked like it was going to get up, and then boom, it just kind of stayed, and he locked the brakes up. So yes, that is a valid point that, hey, at least your tires would be on the ground, so you'd be locking up your tires and slowing down that way. But I just feel like when the car does turn sideways and catches air like that, I feel like it slows it down a lot.
Okay, but what about if you're Josh Berry and you're flipped over and you pound the inside wall?
Yeah, it's something I don't want to try to experience for sure. And Jeff Burton brought a great point up on the telecast. Not often are your safety belts tested in an inverted position, right? Surely, hopefully you got your belts pulled so tight that it's all working the same, but certainly there's more pressure going on your collarbone and shoulders when you're inverted versus being pulled down and hitting the wall normally.
Well, Josh gets out of the car and his interview is something along the lines of oh yeah, it looked worse than it was, which is absurd because it looked very, 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 very bad.
I just short of making us run 160 miles per hour around the track, I just don't know how you're going to keep us from these situations. It just there's no way if they slow us down, more, it's just going to make for harder contact and bigger wrecks. I don't agree with slowing us down to where we're going to just slow you down until these things don't flip over anymore. They've been flipping over for decades, man, but I just feel like it's not necessarily a totally bad thing.
What about Michael McDowell's situation, though? Where he's flipped over in, the trajectory of other cars.
Yeah. Now that, certainly is a little more dangerous because he is inverted while cars are coming, right? So it would be easier for front bumpers and things like that to get into, kind of his area of cockpit there. But man, how do you stop that? He was coming down the track and the 22 T-boned him there. I just don't know how you stop it. That's just physics. Good luck stopping physics, right? When you have wind pushing on one side, another wedge coming in from the other side, that's what happens. We race in a sport with speed.
I don't know. It just seems it seems odd that this problem has now arisen in the last 2 weeks, and it feels like it wasn't prior.
Well, we've been on two really fast racetracks. I think that's we'll go short of Talladega. We're going to go the rest of the season. We're not going to be talking about this anywhere.
Harrison Burton wins. This is a big moment for you as a team owner because now short of a win at Darlington, unless Bubba makes up 21 points on Chris Buescher, he will not.
Which is possible.
Yep. But short of that, he will not make the NASCAR playoffs.
Well, I'm gonna believe that he will. We've seen the Southern 500 for whatever reason. It has some attrition. If you look at the results, there's 4 or 5 cars that were running up front that have bad days, and and it can happen to anyone. I mean, my last 2 months with the results, it can happen. So I wouldn't hold out hope against Bubba going out there and just having a great day. And, if he goes out there and he can get top 3 in each stage and finish in the top 3, I think they put a tremendous amount of pressure on others to go out there and not have a bad day.
All right, well, let's take Bubba out of this. The 34th place car in the standings is now a playoff car in 2 weeks.
Pretty amazing. pretty amazing for sure. Yeah, certainly. I mean, where are we? Are we talking about kind of Harrison and the team, or are we talking about implications with Bubba still?
Let's talk about Harrison and the team.
Yeah.
And then I think that'll naturally roll into Bubba and the other drivers.
I think this is huge for Harrison. I rode around in the truck with him in pre-race, asked him a bunch of questions about, what are you going to do? And, what's going on? What are you fighting over there? We had a great conversation, and it was cool to see, after he won. First of all, he won it by making great moves at the end, right? He stayed in line. He trusted Parker to push him there. I didn't kind of examine exactly what he did to get the runs quite yet, but I'll look into it. But from TV, it looked like, man, great move. Fantastic move. Great job blocking down the front stretch. It's a game of inches, right? If you're just a hair too late on one of these blocks, next thing you know, you get turned by the 8. And so I just thought he did a masterful job those last few laps of executing and getting the win. Certainly is huge for him. Some great momentum for him. I think he needed some confidence. And certainly you hear it from his team, his teammates and his team guys that, this is the Harrison that we've always believed in.
But now what about the implications for the Wood brothers, their 100th win?
Yeah, it's great to see, the Wood brothers get their 100th. They've been stuck on that 99 for quite some time now. It's probably been
2017, I think.
Yeah, I was thinking 5 years at Pocono. They've been so committed to our sport, right? I think they're the longest running ownership team in our sport. They've passed the torch to John Wood, who's done a great job continuing the legacy of the Wood brothers racing. And while they have such a strong alliance with Penske Racing, they still have a lot of blood in that car, and so certainly it's great to see the 21 get back to victory lane. And this is, as he mentioned in his post race, such a huge deal financially for them over the next 2 years. The revenue is in the millions and millions of more that they're going to get now than what they were being ranked 34th.
I think back to that interview we had with Michael McDowell last year and how he was talking about making the playoffs first, but then moving along in each round and the financial implications that it had that team didn't have a Hawkeye, and that if they were to finish, wherever in the points, that they could then be able to afford a Hawkeye. Is making the playoffs versus not making the playoffs, like how much better does this make the Wood brothers going into next season than they were this season without making the playoffs?
Well, I mean, think about this, right? Is that I think Harrison he was last of the full-time drivers.
He still is.
Yes,
he still is even after the win.
No, he's 16th.
Well, in points though, he's still 34th.
Yeah. I saw where he had like 260 total points. He just passed guys with 600 points. Like, now they know that the worst they're going to be is 16th in points. And so, you basically just add up $125,000 per position that you gain, and that's how much of a reward they got.
As a team, are the Wood brothers operating under this belief that, okay, we're probably going to finish this year 33rd, 32nd, and we're going to get this amount of money, but now all of a sudden, in the blink of an eye, they just came up with this much money.
Yeah,
and now it's like, how do we spend that?
Yeah, so they'll get that at the starting next year, right? So it doesn't happen immediately. Now, what will happen immediately is at the end of this year, they're going to get I don't even think it paid anything for the point fund back in 34th. It was $0, right? I think past 25th was nothing. They're now going to get 16th, at least 16th place money, which is $1 million basically to make the playoffs in your year-end point fund. So that's $1 million bonus. Then the charter ranking will go up tons, which I mentioned how much per spot there about it is. So it's millions of dollars, which is big for a team like this.
So do you have any issues with this format, with this winning you're in?
I don't know. I mean, we're on the plane home, right? And everyone on the plane had an opinion of like how to fix all of this stuff, but it's certainly it's not ideal from the ownership standpoint, right? Where I'm like, Bubba's 13th in points or whatever it is, and now there, in 1 week there's an opportunity where someone 34th in points is going to be ranked ahead of him. I find that hard to swallow, but I know it's the rules, right? And so it's just up to us to win, right? And so it seems like this win and you're in format opens itself up, and it opened itself up really when NASCAR changed you at least got to be 30th in points, right? They opened that up and says, well, everyone, right? And this has become an evolution over time with our playoffs, where we had so many corporate sponsors back in the day that we had 10 drivers, and we talked about this on the plane. It was like, it was 10 drivers. It was your elite. If they were top 10 in points, like you had to be really good, right? 26 races. You got 26 races to get yourself in the top 10. If not, you're out. These elite guys are going to go race for the championship. And then, you had some teams gripe and you had some sponsors gripe, well, my guy's not part of the playoffs. And instead of them saying, well, sorry, get better, that's sports, they just said, okay, well, we'll expand it. And then, a few years later, they said, okay, we're going to, someone else didn't make it. And they griped, and then they said, okay, well, we'll expand it to 16. And then they changed it to, well, you just win and you're in now. So it just changed. The landscape has changed so much that, these types of things can happen, and it can be such a huge boost to a team like the Wood Brothers in the 21, where they're like, listen, we know where we're at and it's not good, and that's why we're going to make changes, and we're going to struggle to get up there to, holy shit, we just hit the lottery. Like literally the lottery.
Well, I'm asking you this question because
hitting the lottery takes luck. This took skill. This took them spending money, preparing cars. You got to field a competitive race car, right? And then Harrison has to go out and do the job. I'm not equating it to that, but I'm equating it to, it went from, they're probably conceding that we're going to be last to all of a sudden, wow, we're top 16 and now we're guaranteed millions of dollars.
Right. I'm asking
That's the business side of it. That I know that probably bores a lot of people, but that's just the insiders of what's going on.
Right. And I'm asking you this because I knew what your argument was for it at 12:30 this morning. And then after listening to Jordan Bianchi and Jeff Gluck talk about it, I feel like I come back around to, well, yeah, it has made the sport and the racing throughout the season more enjoyable because you don't have guys getting out of the car finishing third being like, well, I had a good points day. Because if they need to win, if Chris Buescher needs to win at Darlington, 4 months ago, he's pissed off that he didn't win that race.
Yeah, no doubt.
And now he's on the bubble, for potentially not making the playoffs.
Right. I mean, he's a photo finish, away, and same with Kyle Busch at Atlanta, right? Photo finish that either is going to make him make or not make the playoffs. And right now it's looking like not. So no doubt about it. There's an entertainment and there's a sport. And certainly this is more entertaining for the fans. I more speak at it from a car owner's perspective who pays a lot of money to make my cars really, really fast and have an opportunity, but it's up to the drivers to go win. And certainly if you win, everything takes care of itself.
What's more important, though, the 15 minutes of good feelings and everything after last night's win, or a Bubba or a Ross in the playoffs and one of those people that can compete in a name?
I'm going to stay out of that because it's an argument to be had, but not by me.
Okay, let me ask you this then. So Jerry was saying people, when Teardown mentioned it, you'd get third. But isn't the bonus points for victory enough that you're still going to have drivers, like they're not going to settle for third. They're still going to try to go win.
Absolutely.
So
yeah,
like
the bonus points make it worth it.
So you would still, like, even if it wasn't win or in, I don't think you'd have that many drivers going and saying, I'm good with third and get the points today. Like, they're still going to be pissed and want to go for the win. So I don't think that's a problem if you got rid of the win and you're in.
I don't know. I mean, this is a broken record, but we've evolved into entertainment, and I understand that. I just need to see more hard data that proves that going this way that we've gone over the last decade has increased ratings. Someone has to prove that to me, because certainly, you see on social media the hardcore fans saying, what the heck, when it comes to, it could be the Austin Dillon thing or whatever, but we all know what the rules are when the season starts. So it's up to us to either go win or be so exceptionally good that you're Martin Truex, right? Where, he hasn't won, but he's been good enough to where he's going to get in the playoffs the old-fashioned way, and that is being good enough in points. So
sure, but
there's multiple avenues to do it. But, you just know at these super speedways, you can have these type of winners that come out of the blue. And that's what the type of drama that has been trying to be created, and they've created it.
Let's transition to Bubba Wallace and 2311 here for a moment. His quote after the race was that you got one car fighting for a regular season championship in Tyler Reddick and another on the bubble. It's unacceptable. I'll take all that weight on my shoulders. I should have won multiple times, and I haven't. We don't deserve to be here, but we are. We got to go win. That's it.
I'm assuming when he's saying we shouldn't be here, he's talking about we shouldn't be on the bubble.
Right.
Yeah.
You got one car at the top of the standings and another car on the bubble.
Yeah, I mean, I understand his frustration there for sure. I mean, had we had the performance in the first 15 weeks like we've had the last 10, this would be a non-issue. Which is why I always try to emphasize to my teams before the year starts that week one, you have to have the same intensity in week one as the intensity that you have in week 25 when you're trying to make the playoffs. That week meant no more than Darlington in the spring or Martinsville in the spring. Like, they all matter. And so I know TV and media puts a lot of emphasis on these last 5 races leading into the playoffs as, oh my gosh, this moment is huge. All the moments, the first 25 races have been important moments, which is why you cannot be off your game for any long extended period of time, or else you will pay a price for it. And you'll find yourself on the bubble year in, year out if you do not have sustained performance. And so I've always thought that, while you want to shoot for being top 16 in points, that's not good enough. You better plan on, you have to be 11th or 12th or better to feel good about making it in on points, if that's what avenue you're going to take and not win. And it's proving to be the case. I think that right now you have to be 12th in points if you're going to get in. And so, it sucks that he's in that position. But again, this is 26 races that of a sample size. And so certainly we all wish that Michigan didn't happen, but it did. It's just part of it. I trust me, I have 2 straight months of horrible finishes. I'm not running horrible. I'm finishing horrible. That's this sport. That's what this is. You have to run good enough when you don't get taken out or don't have a great day. You have to run good enough in the other races to make up for that. So that's why they're in this position, is that, for the first 15, they just didn't have it all together, and they knew they were a little off. But now they seem like they've got it. They do. They are contenders. I think they're probably been a top 5 contender the last 10 weeks, if you probably added up the points and all that other stuff. The running position, the speed. but sometimes it's too little too late, right? It might be in this case. It might not. They might go out there and run top 3, like I said, in every stage and finish, and let's see where the cards fall.
You say the intensity needs to be the same. Is it actually any different from the start of the season to the end of the season? Like, are guys less intense at the start of the season?
No, I don't know that. I know that sometimes it takes certain drivers, and I've been one of them for most of my career, really up until the last couple of years, where it always took me a while. It always was like summer where I started to kick in. Right now, is it because tracks got hotter and whatever? There was always a theory behind that, like Tony Stewart. Oh, when it heats up, Tony Stewart's in the summer, he's going to come to the front. I think that how suited you are to some tracks and the schedule does play a role and a factor. But I do think that maintaining intensity for 36 weeks is very, very hard. It's extremely hard, but it's what the elites do. It's what the elites prepare every week, whether it's a good track or a bad track or a medium track. It doesn't matter. You prepare the same with the same intensity, and you go out there and you give it your all. And it's just very, very hard for people to do that because you've got other going on in your life. Trust me, I know I'm torn in 18 different places during the week, but I always make sure that I give my job, my A1 job, it's due, right? And I give it my 100%. I never want to leave any stone unturned when it comes to being a race car driver, because that's the shortest runway of career I've got left. But it's hard to do, and sometimes it's not because of effort, right? It's just because the pit crew needs time to gel, and the driver crew chief relationship needs time to gel, and you're building notes and things change, rule changes over the off season, and you don't adapt to them as well. Like that's all part of it. But it's the elites, man, bring it every single week, and they overcome when goes bad on the racetrack. They come back for a great finish or whatever. And so I don't, it's not sour grapes on my end that the 23 teams in this spot. It's just, man, I'm liking at least what I'm seeing when it comes to the performance now. Like this is good, acceptable performance. I hate that it's come so late in the game, but man, they're on it right now. They're running well.
You said 4 years ago that this 2311 was a 5-year project to turn this team into a championship contender, and Reddick's 1 week away from potentially grabbing a regular season championship. What does that mean as an owner? While you also have this other guy fighting on the bubble.
Yeah, I mean it means a lot. It really does. I mean, I'm very proud of what we've built over there, and building it from scratch has not been easy. A lot of things take time. Although we may have, there's probably things on the list right now where, okay, here's what I want my competition department to work on next. That project might take a year, 2 to actually finish, right? We're just now building our pit crew facility. That's going to take another 3 months. It'll be done right on time, right when the season's over. So, it just, things take time, right? And so when I said it would take 5 years to build a championship contending organization, I knew that was a realistic number. And while it seems easier to do it quicker, it is not, because, I just, starting this thing from scratch really was hard, because you don't have, if you want to start a new department, well, you got to find the talent, and we're not going to just hire people just to hire them. We're going to make sure that it's the right people. And I think Dave Rogers and that whole team, competition department, have just done a fabulous job putting the right people in the right places to succeed. They work really, really closely with Joe Gibbs Racing, and particularly the 11 car. and they're seeing the fruits of all the hard work they've put in, and certainly would love to see them get this thing to the finish line next week.
If I can offer an anecdote from last night, I thought it was cool. Now, obviously, it's disappointing that you were knocked out of the race, but I thought it was cool to see you in the bus watching this race as a fan of both Tyler and Bubba. And then when Bubba was in that wreck, you know, you're like, come on, you're like, where's Bubba? Where's Bubba? Where's Bubba? Like trying to find Bubba in this wreck. And then once you find him, you know, Taylor's sitting there. She goes, oh, you know, like he's hit by this car, But there's no wheel damage. There's no wheel damage.
That's what I kept saying.
Yeah, you're like, no, he's good. He's good.
He's fine. He didn't hit wheels. He hit body, not wheels. That's good. Good. He's fine. And they're like, no, look at him. He's ping-ponging in the middle of these cars. I'm like, I see that, but he didn't hit the wheels. That's good. So.
Yeah. Part of you is like this irrational fan being like, oh, no, it's good. He didn't just get totaled.
I was totally Austin Payton, right?
When you watch, do you have the audio, or are you just straight a true fan?
I actually, these people, they have the big screen right outside the bus that has, it's live. You know what I mean? So, you know, TV's always delayed. Gosh, it feels like it's been more and more, about 10 seconds now.
More than that.
It seems like a lot, right? There'll be a crash. Y'all will tell me, oh, there's a big crash. And I'm like, stop telling me that. I'm watching it on TV.
Jared did that. He texted me a couple, I forget which race it was. I think it was when Austin Dillon won, and he's texting. He's like 30 seconds ahead of us. And I'm like, well, I got to wait to see what happens.
So you know what I did for the green, white checkered? I put the shades down in the bus and says, y'all are all in this capsule with me. I turned off the radio. You will not go out there and listen and watch it live. You're going to sit here on this 10-second delay with me. Because I didn't want to, you know, I guess it was you that had the Bubba's radio or somebody's radio on, and you hear him saying, oh, they're crashing, get low, you know, and I'm like, well, yeah, no, they're in turn 2, and that's not right. So, I hate getting spoiled. You know, I just want to find out at the same time as everyone else. So it was, I was fanboying quite a bit, kind of watching these wrecks play out and like just, oh man, please don't involve them. Please don't involve them.
When you're driving, can you get a feeling that like something's about, a wreck's going to happen, even if you're in the car or even out just watching?
Yeah. I mean, you can start to just feel the intensity of the pack. And so I kind of explained it in the when I had a FedEx Q&A before the race, and you know, your intuition usually is correct most times, but what happens is, you know, everyone just starts giving each other less room. You know, while the track might be 4 cars wide, if you put us, you know, door to door to door, we can run it 3 lanes wide pretty comfortably. Now, what happens is coming off the corner, when someone has kind of a moment where they're like, I'm getting tight. Well, instead of them lifting, they're like, I'm just going to use this space up here. And then the middle guy's like, no, I need this space. And the top guy's saying, I need to get down there and side draft. All that starts to compress. And in the 3 lanes that we use becomes like 2.5 lanes. And we all just start taking more and giving less. And that's when you can feel wrecks really kind of about to happen.
Was it good to see 3 wide racing this
yeah, I'm glad. I'm certainly glad it wasn't such a big fuel. Now it was about to head that way. When we had the Corey LaJoie wreck, we were all saving at that moment. I was looking at the pace in stage 3, and it looked like there were definitely some that were going all out, and then there were some that were definitely trying to save fuel. It was going to be very, very interesting had that wreck not happened, the John Hunter Nemechek one. What happens through this green flag pit cycle? I think it was going to be very compelling to see who flip-flops their track position because they saved fuel, and then who goes to the back because they ran up front. They were a lap or 2 away from it happening, and it looked like cars were fighting for the bottom, which is why that wreck happened in the first place.
Well, that was interesting because I feel like a majority of the heavy hitters were in the back half of that pack, and the guys up front were the ones who were lower in the point standing. So they were burning more fuel than the heavy hitters in the back, right? But this wreck then took out some of the heavy hitters, and you never got to see that switch, that flip-flop.
Yeah, it certainly did. And it also, what it did is it allowed those who were running up front burning fuel, it allowed them to, okay, they just got, the caution came out. They got saved. So now they can put an extra 1 second of fuel in and not lose 20 spots. They might lose 3 or 4, but they're not going to lose. So it actually paid to be aggressive in that third stage and just go get your track position. Because if you get lucky and the caution does fall like it did, now bam, you can be on equal fuel with everyone. Didn't lose your track position.
What'd you make of Lee Diffey and that call at the finish?
Fantastic! Oh my gosh, can we sign him up for 36 of 36 races?
Maybe.
Can we just make that executive decision at NBC or NASCAR? Just say, hey, non-exclusive. Let him do all the races. He is just fantastic. He knows how to match the moment. He brings just, I don't know what it is. It's just the great ones know how to match the moment with their voice. They change their tone. They change the speed in which they're calling a race, right? That's why he was tabbed to do the 100 meters in the Olympics, right? Like, because that's what he does and what he's really, really good at. So, he's just a fantastic addition. I thought, generally speaking, NBC's production, like the 3D car that they're doing, they're showing, all these, when something goes wrong, they've got the CAD that shows all the stuff. The NBC is just knocking it out of the park right now.
Lee's voice, he's never you never feels rushed, even in the big moments. And if you close your eyes, you can tell exactly what happened at the end of that race.
Yes.
It was succinctly said, the names, and just how he quickly pivoted from Kyle Busch to Harrison. It was perfect.
Absolutely. Yep. And know what was great about it too? They let him have it. They let him have the moment. Steve and Jeff, they didn't get in it. They knew that this guy's the play-by-play. Let him call it, right? And then we will react to what we just saw after the checker flag. So that's a little bit of the chaos that you have. I feel like at Fox is everyone's trying to call the last lap, and it's a little messy sometimes. But man, they nailed it. They nailed the finish. It had me standing up in my chair the last lap, and I didn't have a dog in the Harrison Burton Kyle Busch fight.
Yeah, I think Jeff Gluck said it. He said Lee Diffey. He sounds like he's already seen the moment. He sounds like he's already watched the last lap, so he knows what he's going to say because it all syncs up perfectly, right? The Jeff, you little boy's done it,
To me, it touched my inner soul a little bit. Certainly that moment with Jeff Burton, his son, and seeing how excited Jeff was. I know it just means so much to him, and how he was able to talk after that, I have no clue. There's no way I would have been able to. I would have been overcome with emotion to be able to respond in that moment. But man, just so great.
It was cool. Anything else you want to add from Daytona before you turn to hopefully a happier page?
You have something happy?
No, I'm wondering if you do.
I don't.
Denny's ready to put this week to
I'm
bed.
over it. I'm done. This
you got a Sunday off?
It's dead to me.
Sunday off. He's working right now, Jared.
Oh, okay. In 10 minutes, he's got a Sunday off.
Thanks. Appreciate it. I'm good.
Trackhouse announced a third charter. SVG will drive the 88, letting Zane Smith go.
Man, that's a tough one for Zane Smith. I'm a little closer to the situation than I probably should because I've not mentored Zane, but I've talked to Zane quite a bit through his NASCAR career and kind of given advice on different situations as they arise and different opportunities. But man, this certainly put a tough spot on Zane because he thought he had a long-term future at Trackhouse. He foregoed other opportunities in Cup Series to take this opportunity with Trackhouse, and then when you get let go, you've then lost out on your other opportunities. And so not ideal for Zane Smith. And certainly I would back Zane when it comes to what the future might hold. I think he's coming into his own. I think you have not seen the best Zane Smith yet. You're only starting to see now what he can do. I think he's had some really great finishes. Again, they were one of the teams that, man, they were really bad at the beginning of the year. Terrible. And then they've turned the corner. For whatever reason, over the last 10 weeks, they've turned the corner, and they're starting to get going. And now Zane's got to kind of regroup and figure out where to go with his career from here. So I think he's a good enough talent that he is going to get a good opportunity, a winning opportunity somewhere. I hope it's in Cup.
Yeah, since Nashville, he's only finished outside the top 20 twice. So that's
wow,
8 to 9 races there since Nashville.
Wow, I didn't know that.
So you don't necessarily think that this season and the way it went for the 71 cars necessarily a black eye on Zane's young Cup Series career. We see a lot of young guys come up, they get in, cars that aren't as good as other
Not
cars.
Really? I mean, it was a third, wasn't it an additional team? This was a new team for Spire, right? The third charter? Like they didn't have 3 cars last year. I think that's correct. So this is a new car, new team with at the time, mid-tier team. So, I mean, what are your expectations, right? But I think he's taken it to the next level from what I've seen, and you just read results that show that he's, when given a little bit of experience, now half a season, he's already turned the corner to being twice as good as he was at the beginning of the season. So what is he going to do a year from now, 2 years from now? So I think the ceiling's pretty high on him. I think he'll get picked up by somebody who sees it.
But I mean, from a Trackhouse standpoint, though, SVG basically guarantees you a playoff berth, most likely with his road course, street course racing.
I think that this, certainly, Trackhouse brought SVG in last year. Is that correct? Last year, and it started kind of this long-term plan to try to get him, into Cup one day, and they were going to kind of see how it played out through other series. I don't think that there's any question that SVG can get you in the playoffs as long as road courses are on a schedule. And that certainly, we talked about the financial implications of that's a factor, right? There's a commercial decision to be made as well as a intellectual decision. And I think that they feel that this is their best path. And there's a lot of things that go into it. Certainly sponsorship. We cannot run these cars without sponsorship. And so if SVG has a leg up on sponsorship and you're already thinking, well, it's 50-50, then you're going to make a commercial decision, and I understand that.
This kind of reminded me of, like, in football, you'll see, like, a player get cut because they drafted a hot shot player and they're going to invest in them. That kind of is what I feel like with Zane Smith, is he's just the collateral that because they've got this hot shot driver.
I mean, eventually you're just out of seat numbers, right? And I think before letting Zane go, they had 5 for 3, right? You still got Connor Zillich sitting over there. And you got to think that one day, as long as they're able to keep him, then you still have an odd man out somewhere. But that's you can't fault Trackhouse on investing in their future, right? They're investing. That they've got this alliance with Colleague. I think they've got this alliance with Spire. They got this alliance with Junior Motorsports. Like, they're at least spending money to give these young drivers opportunities, if it's not with them, with someone else. So I kind of can appreciate what they're doing to try to build up their driver pool.
Has that always been a thing in the past where a team would invest in drivers that aren't even racing for them directly at the Cup level? Or are they doing something a little more?
It's changed over time. Once upon a time, a billion years ago when I started, we would just, Joe Gibbs Racing or Hendrick Motorsports would just start a Xfinity team, right? Or what have you. It's just a different world now, where it's, it just doesn't make sense. Even the Cup teams have seen it, running Xfinity just financially is not ideal. So you go to a existing team that already has the infrastructure, the people and the cars, and you just say, okay, well, I'll give you X amount of dollars to run this person And really we've seen that that's kind of what the Xfinity series has morphed itself into, is to, it's drivers that are, others are investing money in to go compete there or just get them ready for the next level.
It's interesting though, that this regular season format has more or less created SVG's opportunity in Cup next year, right? Because
exactly
Trackhouse looks at this as, okay, we have Zane Smith.
Yeah, because realistically, I mean, not to jump over you, but I mean, if SVG is top 25 in points next year, I'd be shocked. I really would.
But he has a great chance to go win one
But
of the many road
he's
courses.
likely just going to go win a road course and then find themselves 16th or better.
Mm-hmm.
And as long as they keep multiple road courses in the playoffs, he could, I don't know, he could go to the top 8. I don't know. This is hard. It takes time to learn. And what I can appreciate is when I watch Xfinity races, SVG does, for the most part, take care of his equipment, and he gets better as the race goes. That's all you can really ask from him. And so I think this is really just a decision to say, okay, well, he's going to be our best path to do what we want to accomplish in the short term. And let's see how this all pans out, and can he continue to get better on the ovals? And I think he will.
I got a review here from Gabe, and they say, well, I'm not an at-track fan. I don't mean that in a bad way. I think you're an awesome guy. I absolutely love the podcast and can't wait for it to drop every week.
Sounds like a common theme.
We'll take it.
Yeah, well, I appreciate it. Thanks for the review, Gabe. We'll see you at a racetrack soon. I don't have anything else. What about you guys?
Make sure to rate, review, follow wherever you get your podcasts.
Yeah, thank you guys.
Subscribe
for
on
tuning.
YouTube.
Subscribe
on YouTube.
Subscribe, please, on YouTube. And we will see you guys post Darlington win.